So if you have a 4 to 18-month-old, you need to watch and save this video because we are going to be talking about the perfect bedtime routine that is actually going to get you more sleep. So if we haven't met before, hi, I'm Jensine. I'm a certified pediatric sleep consultant. I am a certified postpartum doula and a mom of 3 who takes sleep science and real life strategies to pair them together to get you all the sleep that you deserve. So the biggest thing about bedtime is this is the thing that you want to focus on. All of the magic happens at bedtime, and any changes we want to make to your child's sleep, we want to happen at bedtime. Because it is the easiest time of the day to make these changes. Their melatonin levels are higher, their sleep pressure is higher. You have more time to dedicate to getting them to sleep, whereas naps, we do not have the full day to be able to get them to sleep for a nap. But night, essentially, you have 12 hours to work on helping them learn how to get themselves to sleep. So today we're just going to talk about the bedtime routine that's leading into this sleep and how if you nail this bedtime, it's going to make learning how to fall asleep so much easier so they can learn how to fall asleep on their own and put themselves back to sleep each and every time they wake up overnight. So the first thing that we're going to think about is having some wind down time before bedtime even comes. We can't go from fun, play into just immediately you need to sleep. There has to be some transition time for them to be able to wind down and be ready for their bodies to relax. So it really depends on how old your child is. A 4-month-old is going to be different from a very active 18-month-old. So if you do any screen time for your child, typically we don't recommend screen time. The AAP doesn't recommend screen time anytime before 2 years old. But I am a real life parent. I know that it happens. So if you do any screen time with your child, make sure that there are no screens at least 1 hour before bedtime. In that 1 hour, you can figure out, what does my child need? Are they really sensory seeking? So they need a lot of crashing and moving and crawling and things like that. Or do they need more of a wind down, like a chill wind down where a little bit of a longer bath, playing and splashing in some water, maybe running their hands through rice or something like that if they're older and not going to put it in their mouth, can help them wind down. If they are on the younger side, something like infant massage, dimming the lights, things that will help them relax and know that sleep is about to come. So we don't just want bright lights, super active play into all of a sudden you're in your crib. We want this bedtime routine that we're about to talk about to be 20 to 30 minutes so they can get used to that transition. But some children need a little bit longer of a transition time. So really in that, before you start bedtime routine, you might need a little bit of a wind down to really let them know, okay, bedtime routine is about to start. Now, when we move into that bedtime routine, you're going to try to organize it in a way so there's not as many transitions. So if you do a bath, and then you go to their room to do diaper and pajamas, then you go back to the bathroom to brush their teeth, then you go back to a different room to have them drink a bottle, and then you go to a different room to put them in the crib. That's going to be super confusing. So you want to streamline the entire routine so everything is happening in kind of an orderly fashion. So if you're going to start with a bath, which I absolutely love starting bedtime routine with a bath, then you're going to brush their little teeth, if they have teeth, in the bathroom before you transition into their bedroom, which is the place that they will be sleeping overnight. Then I would do diaper, lotion, PJs, looking at a book, all those good things in that room. So once essentially they enter that room, they are not going to leave that room again until it's the morning and time to come out of their room. So for a good bedtime routine, I recommend bath time, then diaper, lotion, pajamas. If they are drinking a bottle or breastfeeding at nighttime, which typically children 12 months and under are, then I would recommend doing that feed at that time, keeping the lights on and keeping the sound machine off. After they are finished, you want to really make sure they're wide awake during that feed, and I will talk about that more in a second. But once they are finished, that is when we dim the lights, we turn on the sound machine. You can either read a book, sing a song, tell a story, whatever it is. So there's something between that feed and going into the crib, and then we put them down into the crib as is. You do not have to find a perfect drowsy but awake. drowsy but awake is actually a lie because there is no perfect place and parents waste a lot of time trying to find that place. So you want to put them in as is. That is however they naturally are. At the end of that bedtime routine, they go in. Sometimes it's going to be more tired. Sometimes it's going to be more awake. We want them to know how to get themselves to sleep no matter what their level of drowsy is. So during that bedtime feed, circling back to the keeping them awake, we want to make sure that there are no long blinks, there's no staring off into the distance, there are no like closing their eyes and getting too comfortable, or like stopping. There, you can tell the difference between an active suck when they're actively drinking and when it's more just like kind of a nibble and they're more like comfort sucking. So once you notice they're starting to slow down and no longer actively feeding, that's when you want to either remove the bottle or unlatch them from the breast so that the feed is the feed and it's the purpose is not to get them to sleep. This is where a lot of parents, it gets a little bit tricky because we really want to make sure that they are eating and nice and full, but also that they're not just hanging out because they're not sure how else to get themselves to sleep. So it's a very fine line that we have to play with. And it might take a couple of like latching, unlatching for them to get that full feed while keeping them wide awake. So no worries if your feeds are taking a little bit longer in the beginning. As you're actively working to keep them awake through the entire thing, that will streamline and it will get shorter. Another thing to think about is a lot of parents, as they're putting their little one to bed, will have some music or a lullaby or something that they're playing on their phone as they're putting their little one to sleep. And then once they leave the room, that sound leaves with them. Whatever you have on to put your child to sleep, you want to have on for the duration of the night. If that noise, they're going to notice that noise disturbance of it being gone. And when they wake up, they're going to notice I'm in a different environment because when I fell asleep, there was music on and now the music is no longer on. So we want to keep that sound through the duration of the night. So if you know I only play this song at bedtime and I take my phone with me, then we either A, want to stop playing that sound at bedtime, or B, want to find a way to keep that sound going even when you're not in the room. So typically that's why I recommend a plug-in sound machine where you can plug it in, turn it on, and it doesn't turn off until you turn it off. The timers also get tricky because those turn off. And when they wake up, they're gonna have fallen asleep with the sound machine on and they wake up without it on. So anything that you're using as a sound needs to stay on for the duration of the night. And I do recommend a sound machine that is going to help filter out the other noise so you don't feel like you're constantly having to tiptoe around once your little one is in bed. And then the last thing that I want to point out is putting them into the crib awake. Again, I referenced that drowsy but awake. Don't try to find that. Put them in as is. And this is where parents get into a lot of trouble because they know that their little one is probably going to be upset once they put them into the crib. And this is where things tend to start to fall apart because as soon as they cry, our instincts are just to pick them right back up. But then we get into this kind of battle of like in and out and upset and not upset, and it can get really tricky. So if this is where you continue to get stuck, I have an exact framework for what to do once you put your child into the crib to help them learn how to fall asleep independently and on their own. And if you want to know what I use with my one-to-one clients when I get them the results that their child is falling asleep independently without tears in 3 days, they are sleeping through the night in about 5 days, then all you have to do is comment plan, and I will send you the information on the next steps so we can discuss what's going on in your individual situation and the next right step for you to be able to be sleeping through the night in the next 5 days. So I comment plan. If you need some more support, please put any questions that you have below in the comments, and I will see you in my next video.